Thank Ambika Mathaji for inviting me to speak today, although I'm not qualified, but thank you so much for your humble invitation and giving me opportunity to do some small service for the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpataru vishra kripasindhu evacha patita nam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we will begin with the Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Is the audio tuned, like, for Zoom, because I will play the harmonium?
Yes, the audio is good.
Okay. Prabhupada ki jai.
Extremely beautiful, Harika. Thank you so much for coming to enlighten us with this
Thank you so
beautiful
much for
topic.
inviting me. I hope I can do justice to this wonderful Sangha that we have. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all your amazing effort in bringing us all together. Hopefully I can do some small service to you. So please give me your blessings. Please give me your well wishes so that I can do the service from my heart and only say what Prabhupada wants me, and it can be beneficial to the Vaishnavas. I would like to start with the invocation prayers. If we can all fold our hands and, from our hearts, say these prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shyutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha Shri Vishaka Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Stute Devri Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna to all the Vaishnavas and assembled devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances and respects. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know it's 6 p.m. in Finland. It's 4 p.m. in the United Kingdom. So as we know, today I'm not very qualified and I do not know much about love and developing Krishna's love, but I think Ambika Mataji has been very merciful and she's given me this small opportunity to share with you tonight a little bit about what I know and what I have learned from my time in this wonderful movement. We are known as the movement of love. So on this wonderful day, it is a good idea to understand a little bit more about how we can learn to love. I think it is George Harrison who wrote in his book, in Prabhupada's book, Srila Prabhupada's book, we hear Chant and Be Happy, where he mentioned it's all about love. Everything in this world is about that search for love, to love and to be loved. So today we're going to explore how we can learn to love by building our love for the most lovable person in this world, Sri Krishna. Behind me, I'm in the temple president's room in the Bhaktivedanta Mana, and behind me we have this wonderful picture where we can see Krishna, is leaving Vrindavan and the gopis in separation. How this love and separation is so important in understanding it and in cultivation of our deeper attachment to real love, which comes from, of course, loving Krishna and loving God. So let's start with some brainstorming. I know we have a few people, so if you're on the chat, maybe you can type, or if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself. And I just want to get to know the audience a little bit better. So if you can share, what do you think love is? And please share it on the chat or just unmute yourself, and you can probably say your name and we can discuss what you think love is. anyone, please don't be shy. You can share, you know, they say sharing is caring. We learn from each other. So please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Lily, go ahead, you first.
I'm how can I say? I just want to say what I think in my mind. What is love? Love, it is unconditional trust, unconditional belief, unconditional understanding to whatever two person, or it's same love to God. And yes, of course it's back, it's same, because it's honest and without, how I can say, any prescription or long list how other can love another one person.
That's beautiful.
That's how I understand it.
That's a beautiful, I mean, that's like a lot amazing points you said there. You know, it's unconditional trust, unconditional belief. I mean, I think even Silpesh Prabhuji on the group chat says to care unconditionally, you know, to find this eternal love where there's no expectations. You know, it's a beautiful example of this is seen in our parents, you know, our mother and our father, who as
Yes.
we're growing up as a child, they give us so much love. I mean, the first conception of love comes from this childhood love that we get from our parents, which is so unconditional. There's they have no expectations from us. They just keep giving, 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 and giving. So thank you, Lily. That was quite a wonderful way of putting it. I think we can end our class there because you summed it all up. Anyone else who'd like to share? If not, then we can continue. I think Ambika.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I was thinking, for me, love brings this idea about the servitude, the servitorship. Of course, we first understand the servitorship on the material platform in our everyday relationships with other people. But in general, it is so that when we are happy in our relationships, we offer, you know, services like this idea of unconditional love. So we don't see ourselves anymore. We, you know, act selflessly, and we act for another person's well-being. You know, whatever the other person may need, we want to offer, and we want to be there for another person. And then when we come to a higher level of consciousness, then we understand that actually our original servitorship is for Lord Krishna.
That's beautiful. I mean, yes, completely agree with you, Ambika. Service is so important. It is said that Krishna, you know, he's very willingly and willingly to give us liberation. But it's very difficult for him to grant us the boon of devotional service. And does anybody know why? So this is what I said. Giving liberation is very easy for Krishna, but he cannot give you devotional service very easily. It's because it captures his heart. When you do service for somebody, it captures their heart. You know, that's why they say when before, like sometimes you get somebody a gift and they're not expecting it. They say the thought is what counts, because you can capture somebody with your actions. I think we're also going to study a little bit more on how love is just not a word, and it's a verb. It comes, you know, love in actions. How we can display our love for Krishna through our service attitude, and through our service mood. So that's why Krishna is captured, you know, his heart is captured by a devotional service. And even in the Nectar of Devotion, you know, we read in many chapters that great devotees, they don't long for the boon of liberation. You know, that's just one aspect of it. For them, it's fine to come lifetime after lifetime. You know, this place can be heaven or hell, just because for them, the most important beyond liberation is the aspect of service. And like in the morning prayers, when we sing the Tulsi Aarti, you know, we say, Seva adhikar diye karo nij dasi. We're praying to Vrinda Devi to give us this boon of devotional service. That's only when we can, Dina Krishna Dasadoy, Eyan Moroho, Sri Radha Govind Preme Sada Yena Basi. We can only develop this prema for Radha and Krishna through the boon of devotional service. So thank you, Ambika, for sharing that. And thank you, everybody, for sharing.
Thank you.
Can
I
I
was also
ask one question? Can I ask one question before? Sorry, Ambika, before we go forward.
Is it okay if we take the questions after we finish the session?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being so patient. Just so that we can cover everything in good time. So moving on. So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary and Google, these are some of the descriptions of what love is in the mundane world. As said, it is an intense feeling of deep affection. When you read, the Nectar of Devotion, you read a lot about the spontaneous nature of love, Raga Nuga Bhakti. And then you read about like Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, which is like devotional service through like following this regulative principles. But beyond the regulative principles is Raga Nuga Bhakti, spontaneous, natural love for Krishna. Another description given on the web is a strong affection for another arising out of kinship or personal ties. And this is explained in the Nectar of Devotion as well, Ragatnika, which is basically the mood. What is our mood that we should develop? And is normally seen in the residents of Vrindavan, the Vrajvasis, like you can see in the picture here. What is that mood of separation, that deep affection, that deep love for Krishna? And another description given is warm attachment, enthusiasm. Enthusiasm in our service is also love for Krishna or devotion. So I'm going to share now 3 concepts, which I have got from Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, and we're going to explore a little bit on that. So the first concept is, what is love? Prabhupada says to love is to love God. So he says our philosophy is to educate people on how to love God. That is real religion. Sarve pumsha paro dharmo yato bhaktir adokshaja. That is first-class religion, which teaches the follower how to love God. And as soon as he becomes a lover of God, just like I'm an Indian, but I have to come to Western countries to teach love of God. It is not that I am satisfied only in myself that I love God. That's all right. But due to my love to God, I love others also, because I'm trying to teach them to love God. The same philosophy. So if people take seriously this movement, how to love God, then human society will be first rate. So basically, Prabhupada is saying here that what is love? Love is loving Krishna, or love is loving God. I mean, if you're a Christian, if you're a Buddhist, you're still trying to develop some faith. You're still trying to develop that innate quality of love within you. So to love God is what love is. In the second concept of what is love, Prabhupada says to give Krishna consciousness. So this concept of like where we were discussing unconditional love, where a mother gives the child unconditional love. No matter how many tantrums the child throws, the mother is not going to be like, okay, I'm done with you, goodbye. No, the mother still continues to develop that child, to give her unconditional care. So Srila Prabhupada says, we are giving Krishna consciousness. That is loving, real loving. We are giving him eternal life, eternal bliss. Unless we love them, why we are taking so much trouble? The preacher must love the people. Otherwise, why is he taking? He can do it for himself at home. Why is he taking so much trouble? Why in 80 years old I have come here if I do not love? So who can love better than a preacher? He loves even the animals. Therefore, they are preaching, don't take meat. Do they love the animals, rascals? They're eating. They love their country, that's all. Nobody loves. It is simply sense gratification. If somebody loves, he is Krishna conscious, that's all. All rascals, they're after their own sense gratification. They will put a signboard, I love everyone. This is their business. And fools are accepting. Oh, this man is very philanthropic. He does not love any man. He loves only senses. That's all. The servant of the senses. That's all. So in this second concept, Prabhupada is saying that love is to give. This unconditional love cannot develop if we are not giving to each other. You know, they say mostly like the material world is based on taking. What can I get? What can I get? But when you come into the spiritual world, when you live in an ashram, or when you go out for, like, let's say, Sankirtan, book distribution, I don't know if many of you have gone, but it's a wonderful experience where you get this opportunity to give Krishna consciousness. You might not know anything, but the idea of just giving to people makes you much happy. It's like when somebody's birthday is coming along and you know it, it doesn't matter whether you can give them a small or, a big gift. Just the idea of giving somebody something just makes you generally more happier. So this is what Prabhupada is exploring in the second concept of love, which is the idea of giving rather than taking, rather than receiving. In order to receive love, we first have to give it. If we cannot be givers of love, like a mother gives unconditionally, then how are we going to receive that love? In the third concept, Prabhupada says, what is love? To find eternal happiness. I mean, I have met in my life so many successful people, so many rich people, so many, very successful, well-traveled, well-educated. But I have never seen, like when I was walking through with them in their life, they were all not happy. So throughout their search, every single person on this world is searching for happiness, and not just, any kind of mundane happiness. Because if you want happiness, let's say you have a desire, you like ice cream, you can just go buy yourself ice cream and have that ice cream and you're happy. But then what happens? It melts, the ice cream's gone. And after the ice cream is gone, you have sort of like it's like going for a holiday to your dream destination. When you're going, you're very excited and very happy. But when you're coming back home, you have that anxiety, that, oh my God, I have to go back into my mundane life again. I have to go to work. So how do we, how do you create eternal happiness in your life? And he says that love, real love, in the Bhagavad Gita, we study what is real love. There's lust and then there's real love. And it's completely described that real love is developing that consciousness, that God consciousness. So in this third concept, which is a little bit deeper, Prabhupada says that love is to find eternal happiness. And here he explains, if you want happiness, then you must learn how to love God. So we go back to the first concept. It's a tie with the third concept. Is a tie with the first concept. You are trying to love somebody, but you are being frustrated, foiled, because except God, nobody is loving object. And if you love God, then naturally you love everything, because God is everything. The example is that if you pour water on the root of a tree, it goes everywhere, to the twigs, to the leaves, to the flowers, everywhere. But if you pour water on the leaf, it is localized. It does not spread. So we are manufacturing, inventing so many humanitarian work, welfare work, but still people are unhappy. Like I was explaining, I've met people from different walks of life and they seem successful. They might have a lot of money, they might have the best looks, they might be famous, but they're still all unhappy. you know, and Prabhupada is explaining here why. He says, why? Because it is pouring water on the leaf, not on the root. Happiness comes from within. And if you're not happy, if you're not feeling what is within, then it gets difficult to see everything, you know, to see the happiness outside, because within it, there's like that darkness, or within there's that shallow, empty feeling. I'll give you an example of my story. You know, before I came to the manor, I was living in America for 7 years. I studied there. I finished my undergraduate degree at the University of Michigan. I was in Michigan for 4 years, and then I moved to California. And my idea was that when, you know, California is known as like the dream destination, you know, if you're an American or if you're living in America, it's like the place for dreamers. It's like you make it big there. And I thought, like, if I go to America, that's it. That's my American dream. You know, American dream is basically like you have a perfect house, perfect job, perfect career, and that's it. You've made it big. You know, you've become the top, they call it the top dog of the nation. And there's this one day, you know, I had my perfect apartment, perfect car, perfect job. You know, I used to work in Mission District in San Francisco. And there's this one day when my mom came to visit me over summertime, and I had to, in the morning, I dropped her to the airport. And in the evening, by the time it was 5 o'clock, everyone comes out of their office, and the central city, Mission Street, it's called Mission Street, is very busy. It's like chock-a-block. There's people all around you. And I came down from my office, it was 5 o'clock, and I was just walking in the street. And though there were like millions of people around me, I had every single thing I had, you know, like all the opulence. You think like, this is a perfect life. I have everything I want. I felt so empty. I felt like I have nothing. Even though there were people around me, I felt like I was alone. There were like millions of people on the street, but I felt alone. Why? Because the internal happiness wasn't there. That God consciousness wasn't. It is within our heart, but I wasn't practicing it at that level where, you know, where I realized that all these things, you know, inventing all these things, you know, material things would actually give me happiness. So people are unhappy, Prabhupada says. Why? Because it is pouring water on the leaf. I was pouring water on the leaf, you know, I thought all these material things. Of course, Prabhupada also says money is necessary. Without money, you're zero. But when you put those material assets into use for your Krishna consciousness, then only you can get that happiness. So he continues to say, so learn by Krishna consciousness how to love Krishna, and how to love your country, your society, your friends, everything. But without loving Krishna, you cannot love. So that's what was happening to me. I was loving these material things, but I was not loving Krishna at the same time. I wasn't using my material assets to love Krishna. I was just using my material assets to love myself and to sense gratify myself. Prabhupada continues to say, without loving Krishna, you cannot love. This is the secret. And if you love, just like because I love Krishna, therefore I have come to your country. I had no business to come to your country naturally, but we are preaching this Krishna consciousness movement means we love everyone. We don't make any distinction. We love animals. We don't like to see animal killing. This is also one of our propaganda, no meat eating. Why? To save the animals, because we love animals also. We love even an ant because we love Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita is explained that a Mahatma sees everything as equal because he sees every single thing as part and parcel of Krishna. He sees Krishna in their hearts. In every audio tape you listen for about Srila Prabhupada, there's one constant phrase he says, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Itistati. That Krishna is in everybody's heart, in every living entity's heart. So how do we love? How can we express love if we cannot learn to love each other? So this is that concept where, you know, the third concept is eternal happiness comes from learning how to love God. And if you love God, then you must love every single living entity. Now that we know what love is, you know, let us explore How do we learn to develop love by loving Krishna? So this is the next, part of our session. There's this very famous quote by Mother Teresa. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but Mother Teresa was this famous nun, and she had done a lot of missionary work in India, and a lot of work with working with sick people. So she gives this description, and she says, the fruit of silence is prayer. The fruit of silence is prayer. The fruit of prayer is faith. The fruit of faith is love, and the fruit of love is service. So of course, like Ambika was explaining to us, developing love, we cannot develop love if we are not engaging ourselves in service, because the fruit of love is service. Like the more you have love for Krishna, the more you're going to want to do service. That's why in the Nectar of Devotion, we learn, that great saints, great, pure devotees, they don't want liberation. They basically want eternal service to the Lord, and they don't care how the Lord keeps them, whether in heaven or hell. For them, it's the same. They're equipoised. They don't, that's why they're able to treat even animals or any other living entity as equal. They're equipoised. In the Nectar of Devotion, I'm going to read for you this extract, which is in chapter 17, and it talks on ecstatic love. It says, by the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated to the transcendental stage beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. The sun is far above the planetary systems, and there is no possibility of its being covered by any cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified like the sun, from his pure heart, there is a diffusion of ecstatic love, which is more glorious than the sunshine. Only at that time is attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation for material affections and is interested only, this is very important, is interested only in the service of Radha Krishna. And who do we see this constant mood of like interested in service of Radha Krishna? Do you guys have any things that come in the top of your mind where you see this mood of deep attachment to service?
10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Give us a little bit more on that. Some people might not know.
Okay, so in the 10th canto, of course, we cannot jump in and we cannot just start to read 10th canto before we study the previous cantos systematically one at a time. But when we come to 10th canto, then we can read about those pastimes and Gopi Bhava that Krishna has had there in Vrindavan with loving gopis who are very intensely, desiring to be with Krishna and so on.
Perfect.
But
Yes.
we must understand that this is not the concept of love. This is not the concept even of the conjugal love that we have in this material world, but it's fully transcendental.
Exactly.
And it doesn't happen like with our material desires.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Ambika, for sharing. And indeed, the devotees who we see that they have no agitation, their only interest is to serve Radha and Krishna, is the gopis, the topmost love. I mean, they were married, they had children, but they left everything just for Krishna, to go and dance with Krishna in the forests of Raj. There's several descriptions of how these Rajrasis show us how more than attachment to liberation, we can be interested in like, okay, I want to go back to Godhead, or you can be interested in falling in love every day with your service and knowing that it doesn't matter where you go, because your aim is to serve Krishna, to please Krishna. is the most topmost goal of our devotional service. So in the 10th text of the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, does anyone remember what this famous verse is? Any Bhakti Shastri scholars here? If not, then I'll say it. Tesam satatam yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they come to me. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, Buddhi Yoga itself is action in Krishna consciousness. That is the highest intelligence. Buddhi means intelligence and yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. When one tries to go back home, back to Godhead, and takes fully to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, his action is called Buddhi Yoga. In other words, Buddhi Yoga is a process by which one gets out of the entanglement of this material world. The ultimate goal of progress is Krishna. People do not know this. Therefore, the association of devotees and a bona fide spiritual master are important. One should know that the goal is Krishna, and when the goal is assigned, then the path is slowly but progressively transversed, and the ultimate goal, which is to be with Krishna, is achieved. So in this verse, it is very clearly explained that Krishna conscious itself is action in Buddhi Yoga. You know, we say love is not only a word. It's a 4-letter word, which is a verb, which is an action. So in this verse, we clearly understand that what is love? Loving, how do you love God? Is by following the process of Krishna consciousness. And one who tries to fully take to devotional service. In the next verse, which is verse 11, after this in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, to show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, but even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literatures or his spiritual master, which is the way to access this love, you know, why do they say we need the mercy of a spiritual master? Why do they say we need the association of devotees, which is part of the process, you know, bhajana kriya, sadhu sangha, all these are the processes that we need in order to achieve prema, in order to achieve love. There are certain processes that you need to go through. And Prabhupada is saying, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within his heart. So the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, it also says, Patram Pushpam Phalotoyam, a very famous quote, you know, shloka in the Gita. And in that, Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is explaining to us that every day we offer prasadam, every day we engage in all these Vedi sadhana bhakti, you know, all these processes of regulative principles. You know, we do different kind of services. But what is the point of doing all this if there is no love and devotion? So love, you know, doing it with love, understanding the mood of love and developing it in our service is very important. So the process is simple. How do we develop love? And how do we develop this quality to learn how to love Krishna? It's easy. We engage in Krishna consciousness. And what is Krishna consciousness? In the manner of just a week ago, we lost a very wonderful devotee. His name was His Grace Jankinath Prabhu. And I had met Jankinath Prabhu and his spiritual master, His Holiness Chandamuli Maharaj, in America many years ago. And he used to use this phrase, it's called ABCDs of Krishna consciousness. And within that, he used to wrap up what is Krishna consciousness. So he'd say A is association with devotees. B is books, reading the books, distributing the books. C is chanting. D is diet, eating only foods that have been offered to Krishna. E is engagement in service. And then F, G, and H, I added my own, because I feel these are very important processes in Krishna consciousness to develop that love, you know. You need the favor of Vaishnavas. You need the mercy of devotees. You need the mercy of your spiritual master. G is giving Krishna, like where we are discussing this concept of unconditional love. How do you develop this concept of unconditional love? What do we see our parents, our grandparents do for us? They're just giving us, you know. If you don't have money, you can go to your grandma and be like, here, take it, you know. if you're having, they normally say angel investors. Your angel investors are always your parents, because they're just giving us unconditionally. And what does Krishna also want to do? You know, when we see this mood of love, of separation between Radharani and Krishna, why does he come in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? It's because he just wants to save the souls by giving the boon of the holy name. So giving Krishna is such an important concept. And the last one, H, which is helping hands. Mother Teresa says that the hands that serve, you know, the hands that serve are holier than the lips that pray. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami says, like I was explaining before, love is a verb. We empathize, appreciate, share, help, and give. So Krishna consciousness, you know, all these processes, association, bhog, chanting, these are different ways of developing this verb in our life. We empathize when a devotee comes to us, and, you know, the 6 loving exchanges where he inquires from us confidentially, or we have the exchanges where you give somebody a gift. You get the opportunity to share, or this class is an opportunity for me to share and help and give the little that I know. Of course, I'm not qualified, but the little I know, in this way, we're also sharing the love for Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained, Ayur harati vaipamsam udhyan ashtam cha yannaso tasyarte tachano nita uttama shloka vartaya. Both by the rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of all good personality of Godhead. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, this verse indirectly confirms the greater importance of utilizing the human form of life to realize our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord by acceleration of devotional service. Time and tide, we've heard this many times, time and tide wait for no man, Prabhupada says. So the time indicated by the sunrise and the sunset will be uselessly wasted if such time is not properly utilized for realizing identification of spiritual values. These values that Bhakti Tirtha Swami is discussing, you know, empathy, appreciation of devotees, sharing with devotees, helping, giving unconditionally, cannot be realized if you're not engaging yourself in Krishna consciousness, the devotional service process, which Prabhupada is saying here. So time indicated by sunrise and sunset will be uselessly wasted if such time is not properly utilized for realizing identification of spiritual values. We cultivate these values: empathy, humility, tolerance. Even a fraction of duration of life wasted cannot be compensated by any amount of gold. Isn't that beautiful? Prabhupada is saying any amount of gold cannot compensate for the time lost, you know. That's why they say time is an asset, time is so valuable. Human life is simply awarded to a living entity, Jiva, so that he can realize his spiritual identity and his permanent source of happiness. A living being, especially human being, is seeking happiness because happiness is the natural situation of the living entity. Satchit Ananda, Ananda, eternal happiness. Haribol, someone thinks. I'll continue. But he is vainly seeking happiness in material atmosphere. That's what I was doing in San Francisco. Why did I come out and in a street full of people, millions of people, feel so alone, feel so empty? It's because I was seeking for happiness in a material atmosphere. A living being is constitutionally a spiritual spark of the complete whole, and his happiness can be perfectly perceived in spiritual activities. These activities we're talking, the ABCDs of Krishna consciousness. The Lord is the complete spirit whole. His name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and personality are all identical with him. Once a person comes into contact with any one of the above mentioned energies of the Lord through the proper channel of devotional service, the door to perfection is immediately opened. The door to perfection, the door to prema, in the morning we say the 10 offenses. And one of them is the ultimate success is to develop Krishna prema. So that perfection of our life, to develop love, is only opened when we properly channel our devotional service, when we engage in these, processes of Krishna consciousness, the ABCDs. In the Bhagavad Gita, we're going to explore some texts here. Sorry, it's a very text intensive, but I think we should always endeavor to explore ourselves in more of these wonderful texts that Prabhupada wrote. There's so much love. There's so much love for Krishna in it. Prabhupada says in 2:14 Bhagavad Gita, endeavors in devotional service are never baffled, nor is there failure. A slight beginning of such activities is sufficient even to deliver a person from the great ocean of material fears. As a highly potent drug injected intravenously acts at once on the whole body, the transcendental topics of the Lord injected through the ear by pure devotee of the Lord can act very efficiently. Oral realization, there's Shruti. Shruti is known as by hearing the Vedic literatures, like what we're doing now. I'm reading from the Gita, some text for you. Oral realization, just by this hearing. When we study Srimad Bhagavatam, from the story of Parikshit Maharaj, he only had 7 days. But how did he achieve perfection? Simply by hearing from, Sukadev Goswami, simply by hearing, the conversations between the sages of Naimisharanya, simply by hearing, Prabhupada says, you can attain perfection. Or a realization of the transcendental messages implies total realization, just as fructification of one part of a tree implies fructification of all other parts, like where Prabhupada is explaining, where if you water the roots of a tree, automatically, the leaves, the flower, everything is watered. I don't need to go and feed we have different intestines and whatnot. I know if I just put food in my mouth, all the other body parts will get the nutrients. So that's what he's saying. This realization for a moment in the association of pure devotees like Sukadev Goswami prepares one's complete life for eternity. And thus the sun fails to rob the pure devotees of his duration of life. Inasmuch as he is constantly busy in devotional service of the Lord, purifying his existence, death is a symptom of material infection of the eternal living being. Only due to material infection is the eternal living entity subjected to the law of birth, death, old age, and disease. So here Prabhupada is saying that we will not be affected by birth, death, old age, and disease. We don't have to be worrying that by every rise of the sun, we are losing our life. Because if you are engaged in this ABCDs, if you're engaged in this process, it's not just any mundane process, it's a process of love. It's a process of developing love, where every day as you wake up, the sun is not taking your life. You're actually prolonging your eternal life, the afterlife, what happens after you die. So you're preparing for that eternal life. And no matter what happens, where, like, let's say, you know, if you might not achieve Golak Vrinda or whatnot, Srila Prabhupada also explains that there's guaranteed success. There's no depreciation. There's no loss in devotional service. There's no loss in this process of love, in this bhakti, you know, bhakti yoga, in this yoga of love. There's always guaranteed success. And he says that the materialistic way of pious activities like charity is recommended in Smriti Shastras as quoted by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Money given in charity to a suitable person is guaranteed bank balance in the next life. Such charity is recommended to be given to a Brahmana. If the money is given in charity to a non-Brahmana without Brahmanical qualification, the money is returned in the next life in the same proportion. If it is given to charity to half-educated Brahmana, even the money is returned double. If the money is given in charity to a learned and fully qualified Brahmana, the money is returned 100,000 times. And if the money is given to a Veda Paraga, one who has factually realized the path of the Vedas, it is returned by unlimited multiplication. The ultimate end of Vedic knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedascha sarve aham eva Veda. There is a guarantee of monies being returned if given in charity, regardless of the proportion. Similarly, this is very important, listen carefully. Similarly, a moment passed in the association of a pure devotee by hearing and chanting the transcendental messages of the Lord is a perfect guarantee for eternal life, for returning home, back to Godhead. Mad dharma gatva purna janam na vidyate. In other words, a devotee of the Lord is guaranteed eternal life. You know, in this Krishna conscious processness, it's like you will always start from wherever you left. You know, you will never have a diminution. There will never be a loss. There will always be profit and profit and profit. And through this verse, we also understand that there is eternal life. There's eternal opportunity of love. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in text 2, in Canto 2, text 237, I will read the Sanskrit verse for you. Prabhupada says, Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam shravana pratestu samritam punatti te vishaya vidushistasayam brajanti tacharana saruru hantikam. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material endurement, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. In the purport, it explains, the sufferings of human society are due to the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more human society engages in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. Simple living, high thinking. This process of Krishna consciousness, how do we develop our love for Krishna? Is through this simple living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadev Goswami, namely, sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of life, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Kathamrita mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over material, will subside, and people in general, in all parts of the world, will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. You know, that eternal happiness, that concept number 3 we were discussing earlier. What is love? And Prabhupada says, that love is, eternal happiness, this bliss, ananda. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relation with his name, fame, quality, entourage, etc. are all pleasing. And because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narad, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and the soul. And by constant hearing of messages of Bhagavad Gita and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured hearing by Srila Sukadev Goswami that he will reach personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Golak Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. So like we were discussing before, which is the main aim of how do we learn to develop love? How do we learn to develop this love for Krishna? It comes through the Shruti, through this hearing, through just sitting there and listening to a devotee read to you, explain to you, do Krishna Katha on, the sacred text as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And then there's this one last point that I want to discuss, which is, how can we develop love for another person? How can we soften our hearts? Of course, there's all these processes, but why is association of devotees so important? Like Ambika was saying, why is service to another person when you love somebody? Why is this service so necessary? Because the truth is, even though how much I'm trying to do a good class, I cannot do a good class if I don't have your blessings, if I don't have your mercy, if I don't have your well wishes. Like we learn from Prabhupada, there's so much we can do, from his movement. There's so many things we can do, but our success is only determined, is only sanctioned if Krishna sanctions it. Without Krishna's sanctioning, without Krishna's mercy, we cannot do anything. So in the Nectar of Devotion, it's discussed that either by mercy of Krishna or of a pure devotee of Krishna, that's why we need a spiritual master. Only a person who has love in his heart for Krishna is able to give us love for Krishna. So this concept of mercy, developing love, can only come by understanding it, how, getting the mercy of our seniors, mercy of these senior Vaishnavas in our life. We can only develop it from receiving it from those who have it in their hearts. So in the Nectar of Devotion, they've given several examples, just by dancing, by a glance, by Narad's special mercy, or by Krishna's grace himself. They discuss it in several chapters. How a devotee, even though he's not qualified, they say hope against hope. Even if a devotee is not qualified, just by Krishna's mercy, they can have that love, prema, it develops in them. There's so many stories, just by the mercy of your spiritual master, one can cross the ocean of miseries. We say, give us in the morning, in the Sri Guru, give us the shade of your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada, so we can get that mercy in order to understand these transcendental literatures. That is the attitude we should also develop, that we cannot do anything independently. Yes, we have to do independent effort. We have to put independent effort in getting up, developing this self-discipline to chant our rounds, to follow the process. But we also have to be humble and understand that we cannot understand this knowledge on our own. We need the mercy, the ocean of mercy of the Vaishnavas. And that's only when this unconditional love can develop, when you receive it from those individuals who have unconditional love. In the Padma Purana, there's a story of a neophyte devotee who, in order to raise himself or herself to that ecstatic platform of love, all he did was he danced all night to invoke the Lord's mercy on him. And sometimes, it's written in the Nectar of Devotion, I'll read this for you. Sometimes, however, it is found that without undergoing any devotional process, one all of a sudden develops devotion for Lord Krishna. This sudden development of a devotional attitude in a person must be understood as a special mercy from Krishna or his devotee. This apparently accidental development of ecstatic feelings through the causeless mercy of Krishna can be divided into three groups: simply by speaking, simply by glancing, and simply by good wishes. In the Narad Purana, there's a statement about how development of ecstatic love simply by speaking. Lord Krishna said to Narad, "O best of Brahmanas, I wish that you may develop unalloyed devotional service to me, which is full of transcendental bliss and all auspiciousness." So just simply by speaking, Krishna, gave this mercy. He gave, to Narad Muni. We can also see that it's also said that as for ecstatic love for Krishna, there's a statement in the 7th canto, 4th chapter, verse 36 in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Narad addresses King Yudhishthira, and he says, "My dear king, it is very difficult to describe the character of Prahlad, Prahlad Maharaj, who had this unconditional love for God. I mean, he was, you look at his situation, he was thrown in the fire, thrown in a well of snakes, trampled by elephants, but he had so much love and faith and deep conviction for Krishna. Of course, there must be an even deeper level of love to have so much faith and conviction." It's said here that he developed a natural attraction for Krishna, and whatever I can explain about his character would simply be an arrangement of words. His actual character is impossible to describe. This means that Narada himself admitted that the natural development of Prahlad's ecstatic love was by the grace of Lord Krishna. It is caused by a special grace of the personality of Godhead or by the special grace of a devotee like Narada. There's a statement in the Skanda Purana where Parvata Muni tells Narada, my dear Narada, of all saintly persons, you are so great and glorious that simply by your good wishes, a low-born hunter also may become a great elevated devotee of the Lord. So this concept of mercy, by service, we can develop love for Krishna. Why service is important is because in order to develop love, this consciousness of love, we need the mercy of those individuals who have the consciousness of love. And this can only happen if you serve them. So mercy is very important. So I had this idea. I was thinking, how can we cultivate these symptoms of Vrajvasis? How can we cultivate these symptoms of love? So we can try to work backwards. So in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami describes like the characteristics of developing ecstatic love for Krishna. And these are the characteristics. There are 9 characteristics. He says that a person who has developed love for Krishna, he's always anxious to utilize his time in devotional service of the Lord. He does not like to be idle. He wants service always, 24 hours a day without deviation. So how do you develop your love for Krishna? How do you develop love for humanity? As Prabhupada says, if you love God, if you love Krishna, you can develop love, right? So always utilizing our time in service. If you have a friend like Ambika and she comes to you, Harika, can you please do a class? Grab that opportunity because that is an expression of love. He continues to say he's always reserved and persevering. He's willing to be perseverant. So sometimes, Krishna puts us in trying situations. Like you might be in an ashram and you're living with different people who don't come from the same background, or you might be in this class and you're like, what is this Mataji talking about? But just being there and sitting there and tolerating, and maybe you don't like the class, and just listening from Vaishnavas is one of the qualities of softening your heart just by hearing. Number 3, he's always detached from material attraction. Always constantly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, does not have attraction for mundane things. Like, instead of being in this class, you might be watching Netflix, or I don't know, going out, taking your kids, and watching a movie, but instead you're here and listening to class. Number 4, he says he does not long for any material respect in return for his activities. So like giving without expecting anything in return. That is a big concept of unconditional love. The fifth characteristic, he is always certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him. Hope against hope. Although a devotee, these Rajvasis, they know, they have this mood of that I'm not qualified, and I might not be qualified to receive your mercy, but he knows that somehow Krishna will bestow your mercy. It's like a child. The child knows, like, I know I'm not good and I might fail, but he can count on their parents that, like the parents come in the end they'll like sponsor them or, save you or give you like, angel investor money. So like Krishna is our father and we can rely on him to always bestow our mercy as long as we have that mood of, always think oneself helpless. If you think you're helpless, then Krishna, you can bestow that mercy of Krishna. And the sixth quality is he's always very eager to serve the Lord faithfully. Like, we look at the Ramayana, we have these great characters like Hanuman. He was willing to cross the Lanka, and we don't have a tail, but if like, if there was this one time, the cotton wick on which we light the lamps fell in my hand and it almost burnt me. Or when I was doing Tulsi Arati and we were lighting and it almost burnt my finger and I was in so much pain. And can you imagine what pain Hanuman was willing to go? His whole tail was on fire. And he still went through all that pain to serve his Lord, to serve Lord Ram, so that he could deliver Lord Ram's message, to Mother Sita. He crossed all the way to the Himalayas to bring a mountain so that he could save. You see these great qualities of service in like Hanuman. It's such a wonderful example of how being the servant of the servant and being just consistently faithful. Even Mother Sita herself, we learned from example that she had so much faith on Lord Ram, that even despite knowing that Hanuman has come himself, Hanuman could have taken her immediately, but she said no, just to make Lord Ram more glorious, and just to, because she had so much faith that her husband, Lord Ram, will come to rescue her. She said, no, I will not go with Hanuman. I will wait till Lord Ram comes to rescue her. So that in itself became her service to her husband, that, her faithfulness. And then the seventh quality is described. He's very much attached to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Like, Krishna comes in his form, qualities, pastimes, and his holy name. So constantly chanting the holy name is also an expression of love, because Krishna is a person. And so when we're chanting our rounds, if we think of Krishna as a person, then you think when you're chanting your round, like normally I like to think is like I'm on a date, when you go on a date and you're having a conversation with somebody. So while you're chanting your rounds, you could think like you're on a date with Krishna. This is your personal time with him. You're having a conversation. And so chanting constantly becomes your, conversations of love with Krishna, your way of expressing love for Krishna. Because as Prabhupada says, Harer Nam Kevalam. There's no other way. There's no other way in this age of Kali Yuga. The only way is through the chanting of the holy name. In the eighth quality, it says he's always eager to describe the qualities, the transcendental qualities of the Lord. All these Rajvasis, what can we learn from them? That they're always willing to describe the wonderful qualities of the Lord. One of which is that he's when we see of the pastime between baby Krishna, Krishna in the Shiksha, in the Damodar Ashkatam, when we have this month of Kartik, is you see all these wonderful transcendental qualities of the Lord, where him, although being, the Lord of the universe, he comes to that position where, because he wants to, wants that love to ooze out of his mother's heart for him, he lets her bind, him. Although he's the supreme Lord, he can carry the Govardhan hill on his little finger. He lets his mother bind him, this bond, this binds of love. that pastime illustrates, the transcendental qualities of the Lord. He's so great, he's so opulent, he's so all attractive, that just to express this mood of love from his mother, he lets her bind her. And then the ninth quality is described. He's very pleased to live in a place where the Lord's pastimes are performed, like Mathura, Vrindavan, or Dwarka. And just by living in a holy dham, His Grace Ayendra Prabhu says that our duty when living in the holy dham is to just sit and chant the holy names. But we are not so elevated. I mean, I'm talking about myself. We're not so elevated, even though you need to come to a stage of purification where you can constantly chant. So that's why devotional service is so important, doing this exchange of the, giving and receiving is so important to cultivate the symptoms. So from today's talk, I'd like to give like a small summary. I know I might have gone over time, but I feel like it's really important to do like this summary. The 3 points that I'd like to share, I hope that you've got out of this is that number one is we have tried to understand what real love is, with the concepts that Prabhupada gave, the distinction between lust and love. And I said, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatastanta cha dvada vrata hamsta yantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. What is real love? Is always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So if you want to cultivate love, if you want to understand what love is, then you cannot understand what real love is, if you don't understand how to love God, as Prabhupada says. The second point you can take out of today's session is how to develop love. It's simple living, high thinking, become Krishna consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not repeat once. This text is said twice. I don't know if anyone knows this, but it's a very famous text. Man mana bhava mad bhakto. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer homage unto me. Thus you will come to me. And without fail, I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. In this, Krishna gives us the simple process of how to develop this love. Always think of me. How are we always going to think of Krishna if we're not constantly chanting, if we're not engaging? The ABCDs that I spoke about: association, books, chanting, diet, helping hands. These all help us to always think, man mana bhavamat, always think of Krishna. If you're always thinking of Krishna, Krishna will think of you. And that's how you develop love. Become my devotee, surrender, offer obeisances, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. So that's another thing, how to develop love. We discussed that. And third, finally, how to learn to love Krishna. The answer is follow the process. Simple living, high thinking, simple living. Prabhupada has said, what is the difficulty? What is the difficulty? There is no difficulty. It's a very simple process, but it is so simple that we might just miss it. These ABCDs, it's so simple. And it's also stated in the purposes of, the purposes of ISKCON that Srila Prabhupada has given. What is the purpose? To bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simple and more natural way of life. Simple living, high thinking. Simple for the simple. This means coming together and building a community of love. This Krishna conscious movement is a movement of love, of moving the heart, of changing the heart. And when you change the heart, it's a transformation to purify, to clean our heart so this love can develop. Prabhupada says, to bring the members of society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, the prime entity, and thus develop the idea within the members and humanity at large that each soul is part and parcel of the quality of God Krishna. In the Gita, Srila Prabhupada repeats again and again in his audio lecture, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. Krishna is in every living entity's heart. And more than sometimes, I've studied in the Nectar of Devotion, you read, or in the Bhagavad Gita also, that in 9/11, chapter 9, text 11, Srila Prabhupada discussed how important it is to see Krishna in everyone's heart. He also explains that the temple of the heart is more important than worship of the deity in the temple. That what is the point of worshiping the deity in the temple if you cannot worship the temple in the hearts of all living entities? And my Guru Maharaj says that that's what you should learn how to see love in everyone. You should learn how to see everyone as a devotee. Normally as devotees, we say, you're a devotee, I'm a non-devotee, especially when we go out for book distribution and we're put out there in the material world. But to try and see Krishna everywhere, Krishna in everything, Krishna in the temple of love in everyone's heart, that is now, real love. To see that, my Guru Maharaj says, to see that everyone is a devotee, and only for a temporary time their consciousness is demonic, but to see everyone as a part and parcel of love. So, Radhanath Swami says, I'd like to end with this wonderful quote. He talks about love, and he says, the goal of life is to love God. And in order to love God, we have to love each other. So how do we develop love? We engage in devotional service. We share a devotional service, and we learn through devotional service how to love each other. So I'd like to thank you and Ambika Mataji for giving me your time, for being here to listen. Please forgive me for any shortcomings or mistakes. And maybe now we can take your questions, and sorry that we could not take them earlier, but I just wanted to finish on time.
Harika Mataji, I cannot take any gratitude from this. I give all glories to all the assembled Vaishnavis who are here, and to my spiritual master as well. And thank you. All glories to your wonderful service.
Thank you. Thank you. Very humble. All glories to the assembled devotees. So now if anyone has questions, we can explore. I try my best to answer. I'm not qualified, but we can sort of do a discussion. It's really encouraging. If anyone has answers, they can also, share their answers and comments, and if they have any feedback, chastisements. I think Lily Mataji, was it Lily Mataji who had a question in the beginning?
You just was answered on my question with your information which you give about love. So I receive answer during your presentation.
Great, Jai. So Ambika,
I think Gunakarna Mataji as well has a question, but my question would be that could you still clarify to us the different stages of developing love from the nectar of devotion, also from the story of Sri Narada Muni in Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yeah, so there's different stages. There's so you mean like Vedi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganaga Bhakti, right? You mean so the stages of devotional service, the stages to prema, how to go to prema. So like, yeah, of course, if you Google it, if you search it, you can also find it. That it starts by developing faith. First is Shraddha. The main element is Shraddha, and then from Shraddha it goes to a Bhajana Kriya, Sadhu Sangha, Anartha Nivriti, where there's this like purification, all your anarthas, all these like envy, lust, greed comes out, and then from that develops pure love for Krishna. So there's a list. I don't know the whole offhand, but if give me a minute, I can just pull it.
Steadiness and ruchi as well.
Yeah, steadiness and ruchi. Thank you, Ambika. So like there's this beautiful picture actually, stages of prema, bhakti. Yeah, there's it's a plant actually, and it's called the blossoming. I'm going to share it on the chat box. You'll see a wonderful picture. Everyone can see this picture of It's a wonderful, it's called the blossoming of the Bhakti Lata Bij. So it starts from the field of the heart, and then it goes through the different stages, you know, sadhu sangha, shraddha, faith, sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, nishta, ruchi, asakti, and bhava. I can share this, and people can, on their free time, they can basically go and study. This is a good place to study for it. You can find more resources there. Thank you for that question, Ambika. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I hope we all benefit from this. Yeah, it's a Bhakti
beautiful
Shastra study.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, like, you know, the blossoming. It shows how the lotus flower blossoms. So you can print it and put it on your wall. If you're like me, whose memory is like a pea, you know, I have a pea brain, so I forget it really fast. Even though this is in my room, I still forgot it. But like, it's nice to every day have it, you know, remind yourself when you get up in the morning, and you can see, okay, this is, you know, where I'm going through the stages. Yeah, so I think another Mataji had a question. Guna Kala Mataji. Harika. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Mataji.
Hi Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I'm sorry, I was busy with kids. There was something you asked, and I about love, and then first came in my mind, which I love, this gopi mood that when Krishna had a headache, and no one wanted to bring this dust.
Oh, yes.
We don't care, heaven or hell, Krishna needs dust. And this say my favorite, maybe.
That's a wonderful pastime. Yeah, I remember, like, when he had a headache, nobody, not even the qualified sages or brahmanas, they were worried about the results, repercussions that we'll get if they give the dust of the lotus feet. But only the gopis were like, no, Krishna has a headache, you know, we have to give it, we have to solve that problem. And that's the thing, you know, we're constantly reminded, the gopis, they have this beautiful painting to remind us that the topmost, that is the, you know, the perfection that we have to achieve. You know, the topmost love is to willing to give. You know, when Krishna, you know, we keep hearing, if Krishna comes to take you right now, will you just drop everything and go with him? Or will you be like, no, my child, my husband, you know, I have to go and do this, I have to go and dress up, I have to, you know, we don't have that consciousness yet. We think we do, but that topmost love of the gopis, where without any reservation, they just give. They just gave their dust. They didn't think heaven or hell. So thank you for that beautiful reminder. That is so important, you know, to study that mood of the gopis, to develop love.
I would say maybe to meditate on that mood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly. Also, Prabhupada said that you think that you will love Krishna with these conditions or that conditions, and then that is not love, that is business.
Yeah.
Something like that.
We studied that today as well. It was in one of the texts. Yeah.
Okay.
In the second concept. So that shows you've been doing a lot of reading. You look busy with your children, but you're doing a lot of studying, I think. So listening to
I just something here, and then that's it. But
thank you so much for sharing. I mean, this is what makes it even more, you know, sit deeper in our hearts, is when we can have these sharings. Thank you.
And at the beginning, when you asked how I would say with my words, what is love, what came in my mind was that what love is, that warm feeling in your heart which you want to give, and you get that warm feeling. And also that love is what inspires you to try your best. I don't know, to do anything, to try something. We all can do something, but that love is what which inspires you.
Yeah.
To do, that's something which we can do to do as good as we can do.
Yeah. They say do your best and leave the rest to Krishna. And that's very true. You know, love, like I was taking Bhakti Shastri this I'm not saying that I've developed pure love for Krishna, but in the back of my head, you know, like when I had struggles, like when I had exams, or I was like shloka test, or I was like, oh my God, how am I going to memorize the shlokas? I'm not qualified. I don't even have that memory. I'm getting older and older. How am I going to memorize? And the only thing you can depend on is the love of your spiritual master and the love of Krishna to help you through it. And, you know, that warm feeling, that magical feeling that comes in your heart. It comes, you know, through these like, that's why we see in all these prayers, you know, Queen Kunti, you're willing to go through anything for love, you know, like they say everything is fair in, what's it, love, peace, war. Is it that is the famous saying, right? You're willing to go through anything for that warm feeling in your heart. Love is unconditional. There's so many songs on it, right? Unconditional love, and this expression of love is all about giving, not taking. So thank you. Yeah, I agree. I hope your daughter was also listening.
Mom, is your Zoom class over?
There's so much more we can learn from children on how to love, just their innocence, you know.
Yeah, as soon as you started to say that love is to give love, she came to give me some scarf.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you, by the way. Nice to meet you. So Ambika, I think we should we end with Nashama prayers?
Yes, and if anyone else has questions or I don't know, but yes, we can finish then. I would like to thank you for speaking about this unconditional love, and I also got reminded about attachment that love is, and how we should like transform our attachment to all the mundane things, mundane people, to the devotees, and to the lotus feet of the Lord. And like you were saying about the great mercy of the spiritual master, how we can make progress, is also that we need to be very submissive and inquire, hear from our spiritual masters. And in that way, we can start, of course, chanting as well. We can, yeah, by those methods, remembering Krishna, meditating on, yes. Like Narada Muni you were mentioning, and he was meditating on Krishna within his heart before he attained the level of Bhava Bhakti. But then he wasn't able to move on to the next level, which is the Prema, because he was still following the systematic practice of sadhana bhakti every day, and Prema Bhakti is already the spontaneous level. So yeah, I just got reminded of these wonderful things. Thank you.
Thank you for also reminding us, like you know, like we hear even Brahma, you know, he realized the knowledge in his heart. And like you said, you know, this inquisitiveness, like we were listening to a Prabhupada lecture. Every Monday we have Prabhupada lecture here in the Mana. And, you know, Prabhupada was saying, all you have to do is develop inquisitiveness for Krishna. So even like when you're asking questions, you know, to your spiritual master or whatnot, that is a way of developing love for Krishna, and how important this inquisitive nature is, a humble, inquisitive nature, you know, submissively humble. And thank you, Ambika, again. Thank you so much. All glories to your service. Thank you for organizing this amazing session and giving me the opportunity to serve the Vaishnavas in Finland. I hope I did justice to your class. Please forgive me for any shortcoming. So we can now do the Nashama prayers, right? Okay.
I'm sorry, can I ask something? I was thinking about this Narada Muni, when he plays his veena and whole universe becomes intoxicated and they all are dancing in ecstasy. When we are singing, what is happening when we are singing kirtan? Then also Krishna is also
yes, like
we all can ask mercy from Narada Muni so that I could also, when I sing kirtan, I can also forget about people around. I can think that simultaneously whole universe is happy listening kirtan and our prayers, or that's just for Narada Muni. I always wish I could sing like Narada Muni, that yeah, he plays Veena and whole universe is in ecstasy.
You know, the one element, like His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj told me once, he said that when you sing kirtan, don't sing for people, sing for Krishna. And when you are singing, don't focus on your voice, focus on the holy name. Why did he say focus on the holy name? Because the holy name itself is Krishna. Krishna comes in his form, qualities, pastimes, and his holy name. You know, we see this story of Ajamil. You know the story of Ajamil in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where he was a qualified Brahmana, but he fell down. But in the end of the day, when he was about to die, what did he do? He said, Narayan, Narayan. You know, he called out his son. That was his son's, he had a youngest child and his name was Narayan. So he called out his son's name. And his intention was not calling God. He was not calling out for Krishna. He was not calling out for God. He was calling out for his son. But because the holy name of the God is so potent, he got another chance. He got another chance to purify his life and get qualified to go back to Godhead. So of course, the chanting we're doing, you know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, for this age, Hare Nam Kevalam. This is just not any name you're saying. It's the holy name. It's Krishna. It's like having an intimate conversation with Krishna. Krishna comes as a person. So the most important thing is what? Is developing that mood of devotion and love. I was in Ekachakra Dham. Ekachakra Dham is the abode of Lord Nityananda in Mayapur. And there was, you know, I've heard so many kirtanyas, very wonderful, ecstatic. There was this one blind and deaf man. He could not hear or even see himself. You know, you're blind, you cannot see how you're playing. But I have never heard kirtan like that. Why? Because he was doing it with love and devotion. I think they say Krishna is Krishna Bhava Graha Janardhan. Bhava Graha Janardhan, which means Krishna is seeing your intention. Krishna is seeing the intention in your heart. What is your intention when you're singing? So it doesn't matter whether you're singing like Narad Muni or not, but he's saying, are you singing it with love? And when you're singing with love, then Krishna can feel that love. And that's the mood we need to develop. The mood of the gopis, you know, they're willing to do anything for this love, eternal love of Krishna. Because when you love somebody, you don't look at whether, although you know you're unqualified, but you don't care whether you have, you know, you just go and just do it with all your heart, So I think when you're singing or when you're doing any activity you do, like you're doing for your daughter, because you want the best for her, you do it with all your heart. And that's what Krishna wants. Do it with all your heart and you'll see Krishna dancing all around you and you'll see magic all around you. And to the people, it might not be there because of course you need a certain level of purification in your life in order to see that mercy of Krishna, in order to believe in that mercy of Krishna. So that, I hope that answers your question. If anyone else in the group would like to share something, you know, that can help you, you know, please. I hope that was helpful.
I think anyway, also, yeah, this singing and dancing for Krishna is very, very important to develop love.
Yeah. Hari Nam Sankirtan.
Yeah, because kids also, before they start to talk, they dance and sing. So it's...
Exactly, in the like we were discussing, the nectar of devotion, it's explained how just by dancing one receives the mercy of Krishna. You know, like in Prabhupada's Jaludita prayers, he explains, he's telling the Lord, make me dance, 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 like an instrument. So dancing, of course, is a way of expression of love, Krishna. As long as you know your mood is, I'm dancing for Krishna, not for myself, or not for like some Prabhuji, or not for like, you know, this person I want them to see, or not to be the best dancer, but I'm dancing for Krishna. Most of the times we're thinking about ourselves when we're dancing. We're like, I want to be the best dancer. Okay, so now we'll do the Nashima prayers. Namaste Narsimhaya Praladayini Hiranyakashipuja Shiladankanakalayi Ito Nashinga Bharito Nashinga Yato Yato Yamidato Nashinga Bharena Shinga Hridayena Shinga Bharena Shinga Hridayena Shinga Bharena Shinga Hridayena Shinga Narashinga Madam Charanam Bhavati Narashinga Madam Charanam Bhavati Tava Karakamanavare Naga Armada Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Danubringa Keshavarita Narari Rupa Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narsimhadev, 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 Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Shira Prabhupada. Nishingadeva Bhagavan ki jai, Prahlada Maharaj ki jai, Jagat Guru Shila Prabhupada